Hello, and welcome to the January edition of CDW's ServiceNow Live Education Workshop Series, where we help you learn how to get more out of ServiceNow. I'm Kim Johnson with the CDW Solutions and Services Marketing Team. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention a few housekeeping items. One, we will save time for Q&A at the end, so if you have questions, please drop those in the chat throughout the presentation and we'll talk through them at the end. You can send those to everyone or just to me directly, whatever you'd prefer. And two, after the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete a short survey, which will open automatically in your browser. It's just a few quick questions, and we would really appreciate your feedback if you wouldn't mind doing that for us. And now, without further ado, CDW's own John Manna. Take it away, John.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kim. And yeah, welcome everybody. We've got a lot of folks registered for this one today, and they're filing in as we speak. But we're going to get started. And this session, it's our first one of the year, of course. But as Kim mentioned, this is part of a series. So we do a series called How to Get More Out of ServiceNow, and we do it every month, pretty much. Sometimes you'll see 2 in a month. Sometimes we'll skip a month. But for the most part, we'll do about 12 of these a year. And the first one this year, it's about AI, but more specifically about integrating ServiceNow with AI technologies. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are inherent with ServiceNow from an AI perspective, but more importantly, how can they or how do they work with other AI tools? So we've got an agenda, and I'm going to do some introductions here, and ultimately, as the note that you guys all got about coming to this event, we're going to talk about ServiceNow and Copilot, specifically what those integrations can look like and what it can do for you. We'll also talk about Watson X and OpenAI, and we've chosen those two for a few reasons. In this part of the agenda, we're going to actually talk about why those were selected, and some of you may be a little bit less familiar, or maybe you're using all of these, but the idea here is to think outside the box. So what we show you with Watson X and OpenAI, it's to spur some discussion within your own organizations and ultimately kind of get more wheels turning about what the possibilities are. And then if there are questions from today's session, we'll field those towards the end. We've got a couple of thoughts or ideas on next steps. And at that point, we'll wrap it up. So just want to thank everybody for joining here, and let's get started. Everything you're going to see today, it's really put together by one of our AI visionaries, Eros Canabrava. Some of you have met him and known him, but Eros is going to be somebody that's available for follow-up after the session if anybody would like to talk in more detail. But more about Eros later. Let's get in and talk a little bit about what we've got going on here. Bringing the power together of generative AI assistants into one, that's what this is about. What we're finding, and here at CDW specifically, we're using lots of AI tools, including Copilot. And the thought here is, as we go forward in our journey with AI and as we work with other customers, figuring out what's the right timing, where's the low-hanging fruit for getting some ROI out of AI versus what are things that are going to need longer kind of time and planning and more prerequisites. This is an area that we feel can certainly, tap into that. So let's talk about this one first. So when we talk about integration with ServiceNow and Copilot, we're really talking about Now Assist. And for some of you, you may already be using Now Assist, or you may have seen some presentations around Now Assist, but are the elements of ServiceNow that really are talking about leveraging ServiceNow's AI to ultimately provide quicker, smarter, faster assistance to whoever it is we're supporting, and doing it in some cases with less human interaction. But it's different than the old days of simply using knowledge bases, right? This is actually taking content that we've got in our systems and leveraging it real-time dynamically to create new solutions that don't exist anywhere else. So ultimately, when we talk about this, this is where we're working on it. Let's take a little bit closer look at this when we talk about bringing this stuff together. So Now Assist and Copilot, ultimately, we're going to talk about getting answers to questions faster than we normally can, empowering users for self-service. So we're moving things, to the left, and connecting support to solve complex problems. Ultimately, where's the Copilot piece come in? It's going to be to take everything that ServiceNow can do and the data that you have in ServiceNow, but lever the functionality of Copilot. If you guys have been using it to summarize emails out of Outlook. Think about the same kind of logic here. That's what we're going to bring to the table when we bring those two things together. So users can search the ServiceNow knowledge base in terms of looking for stuff, whether it's Copilot or Now Assist. They can look stuff up today right through Copilot. So they don't have to move outside of Copilot. They can now work in Copilot, and information, knowledge, and stuff that's in ServiceNow can also be brought together here under one roof much quicker. And then as far as self-service goes, you've got Now Assist and Copilot teaming up to ultimately take the enterprise tasks that we're doing. So once you've got requests happening, searches happening in knowledge, and other things in place, it takes off, and ultimately, it can launch those, pre-built workflows, right? So Copilot's great, but on its own, it's not going to trigger or launch automated workflows to actually go get work done. And that's going to be the difference as we bring these two pieces together. When we talk about connecting, support, and we go deeper on complex problems, so not just somebody sitting at a service desk kind of taking a call or something coming through the portal, right? They can work together. So teams can work across the platform if they're using Copilot in the organization, and that's where they're having a lot of their conversations and a lot of their troubleshooting and the collaboration that they do. That now can get integrated with ServiceNow. So again, it's a bit more seamless. And ultimately, being able to come into ServiceNow and actually ask for things. If you're using chat in ServiceNow, Now Assist is going to take that to the next level. Being able to ask, direct questions in, typical native tongue, and ask those questions. Being able to pull together information from multiple sources, not just ServiceNow, is something that can be done here as well. So when we talk about bringing the two together and getting these two pieces integrated, we're talking about a number of other things. And this short video has actually been recorded from a real workflow. So as you can see down below, a user can come in and type in, hey, Now Assist, what's the laptop replacement policy here? And ultimately, right, we've got Copilot, the interface I'm using here, is going to make the request, into ServiceNow, retrieve the information that's potentially, a match for this, and the conversation can continue. So we know this information is coming from Now Assist. It has a link in the button for clicking to view the Employee Center in ServiceNow. So if I wanted to shift from Copilot, where I'm doing my querying, and actually go do some work, maybe requesting a laptop, right? I'm still in Copilot. I have access to those other things, and ultimately, this is all integrated together.
Hey, John, I was able to join.
Excellent. Eros, yeah, I was taking through that point that you and I had discussed, and when we put this together, the video that really shows how you can go right from here and now seamlessly. Now Assist is taking over, and we're working, right, to launch automated workflows through ServiceNow. But go ahead, I'll let you pick this up, and we'll keep working on this together.
Thanks, John. So, I think the important thing to see here in this demo is how seamlessly you get to work between Copilot and ServiceNow together. So you can start a conversation from within the ServiceNow virtual agent, or you could start a conversation within Copilot. And in either one of those scenarios, you can access functionality from the other agent. So within ServiceNow, I could do things like create PowerPoints or move information into Excels or check on people's calendar availability. And within Copilot, I could do things like request a laptop, as you just saw.
Yeah, thanks, Eros. So at the end of the day, this is where we're seeing most of our clients start. Because Copilot is probably something that's already being used for different things, right? Taking it to this level may require less effort because it's already in place, already being used. And for folks that have ServiceNow in place and have Now Assist, right? Bringing these two things together can be relatively seamless. Eros, I'm going to ask a question for you here. Um, if a customer has Now Assist and if they also are users already of Copilot, what does an initiative look like? How long might it take to get something built that would provide the functionality we just saw today? Can you give
Yeah.
a range on that and any prerequisites you can think of?
Sure. So assuming that they have Copilot for M365 and they have the Pro Plus SKU for ServiceNow, so they have access to both agents from a licensing perspective, and those are both set up. The integration itself is pretty straightforward. So that's something that can be done probably in a week or two. Where the additional effort comes in is actually building out experiences, right? So if you're just going to leverage the experiences that already exist on either side, without creating something that fundamentally combines both sets of functionality. That's pretty straightforward. It kind of works out of the box. If you start to say, I want to create new experiences to maybe leverage functionality of Copilot within ServiceNow or vice versa, that are specifically made for capabilities of those integrations, that's where the effort can get extended and can become a little more intensive.
Great. No, thanks for that insight. Now, Eros, I know we talked about Copilot, right? Is kind of the easier one to speak about and maybe the one more common or the first step for a lot of our customers. But I know that we also wanted to talk about some of the other stuff out there. And I think Watson X and OpenAI are two that you chose, and you had some specific reasons for choosing those. Clients may not be as familiar with it, or some may be using Watson X or OpenAI, but in different factions. I know that what you'd like to do here next in the next few minutes is just give some background on Watson X and OpenAI and why our clients either gravitate to or begin to start to leverage it. And then we're going to see how they can also provide some exponential outcomes if we hook it up to ServiceNow.
Yeah, thank you, John. And first of all, it's probably important to say that ServiceNow actually connects to the vast majority of your AI-based platforms out there. So they have a series of spokes that you can use to bring in LLM models from different organizations. We chose Watson X and Copilot and OpenAI specifically because we think these are really popular with our particular customer base. So for those of you that are already using Watson X, I'm sure you know how great it is. But for those of you who are new to it, Watson's been around for a long time. So myself personally, when I first started learning about AI, IBM and their Big Blue is how I learned about it originally, right? They had a pretty famous AI experience where it was able to beat the world's best chess master. And they've continued to evolve from there. So Watson X is the newest iteration of this. And they have a number of models on that, and their newest model is what they call Granite. And if we look at Granite, there's a number of reasons why you might want to use Granite. One of the big ones is that it's open source. Another one is that it performs really well compared to some of the other models, especially open source models. And then finally, it's got this really trusted layer where if you look at how it performs from a trust perspective, it does really, really well. And we'll look at some of those scenarios here. So if you look at kind of safety as a measurement. And that takes into account a number of different things, like whether the LLM starts talking responses that may show discrimination or deception or harmful info, explicit content. All of this rolls up into an overall safety rating. And these are independent ratings where you have some groups to go out there, they rate all the different LLM models. So in this circumstance, we're comparing Granite to some of the other newer open source models, Llama and Mistral. And you'll see that Granite, from a safety perspective, outperforms those other models. And then here from a faithfulness and correctness. So this is kind of staying true to your prompt and providing the correct information. Again, there are a lot of things that roll into those metrics. But if you look at the performance here for Granite, once again, you'll see that it outperforms some of the newer open source models. So these are a couple of reasons why someone might want to use Granite, aside from the fact that maybe you're already using the Watson X platform and have that deployed across your organization. So OpenAI, this is probably the hottest name in AI today and has been for a few years now. And I'm sure that most of you on this call have either heard of OpenAI or heard of some of its products. So OpenAI has a number of products. DALL-E 3 is one of the most popular image generators out there. And then Sora is a new product. It's really popular, but actually allows you to generate AI video from prompts. But the one that you've probably all heard of is ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, it's really, really very popular right now. It was one of the first generative AI agents to really catch on with the public. And, my mom uses it, my brothers use it. It's all over the place. And a lot of organizations and businesses are using it as well. But when we talk about OpenAI today, we're not really talking about ChatGPT. We're talking about the underlying models themselves. And there are a number of models. We already talked that some of these are very specific, like DALL-E creates images or Whisper converts audio to text. And some of them are more general. So GPT 4.0, 3.5, 3.0, et cetera, are kind of underlying models. The newest ones now are O1 and O1 Mini, and we can talk about those. But all of these models have different kind of use cases. But let's go ahead and go to the next screen. And it's not just that these are popular and well known, it's also that they're some of the highest performing models that are out there. So again, this is an independent site that ranks all AIs, all LLMs, I should say, against each other based on their output. And you can see that we're looking at both quality and speed. So you'll see that there's the O1 Preview, which is kind of the larger model, and O1 Mini, which is a faster, lower cost model. And they both perform at the very top of the rankings across all LLMs tested. So they're really at the top of the field when you look at those. And you'll see that even the older models still show up in these rankings really, really well. So you have a lot of choices depending on what you're trying to do, the quality of the results that you're trying to get back, the types of questions someone might be answering, and the cost point that you're looking for. So these are some reasons why you might want to use either one of these models.
Thanks, Eros. And I know we're going to kind of shift gears now, right? Putting a little background on Watson, X, and OpenAI in context, but you can fill in the blank and add other names to that list. But we want to really take a look at some use case examples, for that. Just like we saw a moment ago, in the first example, with Microsoft. Let's take a look at what one might be able to do leveraging these.
Absolutely. So when we talk about leveraging external models, or even when we talk about building like custom AI experiences within the ServiceNow platform, there are a couple of different ways to do this, but most of them start with the Now Assist skill kit. So this skill kit allows us to create custom Gen AI skills that are tailored to the specific needs within the customer. And you might have skills to do a number of different things. We're going to go through a specific use case today around knowledge management. But if you look at the AI skill kit itself, it's kind of the way that we introduce these capabilities, these new capabilities within the system. So how does this work? So you have a panel that you can go to with this Now Assist skill kit, and within it, you'll see pre-created skills that you have access to on the ServiceNow platform. Depending on your licensing, you might have access to a number of different skills. And then you can publish these skills through your Now Assist admin and determine who has the ability to use them and how they can be used. But the important thing here is you also have the ability to create a brand new skill. And we're going to walk through how we might do that. So from a high level, what we're doing here is we're taking the data that we're inputting and the tools that exist in ServiceNow, and we're using the Now Assist Skills Kit to then create a skill that would then be published by the Now Assist admin. In this particular circumstance, we're going to create a skill here called Knowledge Article Coaching. Okay, and what we're doing with this skill is creating a LLM, so a generative AI agent essentially, to can look at a knowledge article and rate that knowledge article on a set of criteria. Now, we might use ServiceNow's internal large language model to do this, but we might just as well use a model like OpenAI or use a model like Granite from IBM. So we have the choice of what LLMs we're going to use in order to invoke this UI action that will then rate that article. Now, what we're really doing here is we are building a prompt and going through the process of getting responses based on that prompt. So whenever you look at this, I like to think of it as this kind of left to right process, where the first thing that you're doing is you're creating a persona. The persona is essentially who is going to be replying to the information that you're giving it. Then the prompt tells it how to reply. The grounding tells it what information they have access to, so what information they're replying to. Then the response is the actual response that came through. So we're going to think of it in kind of those terms, and we'll walk through what this looks like within the ServiceNow platform. So if we look at this prompt, you can look at it as being kind of two parts. You'll see at the very top of the prompt, what we're saying here is you are an AI model specialized in evaluating the quality of knowledge base articles. So this builds the persona. This tells the generative AI model who they are when they're responding. And this persona will drastically affect the type of responses that you get back. So if we said you are a world-class chef who is really great at food and then told it to rate a knowledge article, you're probably not going to get really good results out of that rating because that person wouldn't know how to apply the things that we're asking it to do. So you will spend quite a bit of time, and there are tons of classes out there that you can take around how to construct personas and build great prompts, but you will probably spend quite a bit of time building out your persona and building out your prompt and testing that to see what kind of results that you get. The next thing that we're doing here after we've built the persona is the prompt itself. I'm sorry, John, if you could go back for just 1 second. So this prompt again tells it the how. So here we're saying it's a rubric for quality check, where we're going to look at clarity, comprehensiveness, grammar, and usability. And you're going to evaluate each one of those things to be either satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So here we are building out how we're going to respond. So now we have the persona, who's going to be making the response, and then how they're going to reply. Thank you, John. The next thing we do now is we look at what's called the grounded prompts. The grounded prompt is the data that we're actually pulling in and handing to the LLM, whose persona then goes through the prompt generation and gives us a reply. So here you can see essentially the knowledge article that we're asking the LLM to evaluate. Okay, and this is coming straight out of ServiceNow. So in the case of a UI action, this would be the knowledge articles that we're looking at when we invoke the UI action. Now, it's important to understand that we can use variables in here. So here, this is essentially a variable. So we're saying you're going to look at the knowledge base article in the specific context that I'm asking you to evaluate. But in the prompt, for example, we also could have brought in data that comes from an incident field or any field and any table that exists within ServiceNow with the appropriate context of what we're trying to do. So now that we've got the persona and we've got the prompt and we have the data, we're actually going to feed that all to the LLM and we're going to get back a response. So here you can see the response. It said that clarity and conciseness was satisfactory, and then explains why it was satisfactory. The comprehensiveness, the grammar and language use, and then usability. You'll notice that it said that grammar and language use were unsatisfactory because there are a number of spelling errors and punctuation errors, which was obvious when we saw the grounded prompt. So I think this is a pretty good evaluation. Now, what's great about this is we could tell it to use different LLMs. So we could take this exact same prompt and exact same persona. We could try it with the internal ServiceNow LLM. We could try it with OpenAI. We could try it with Granite. And we could see if the result's different. That way we can fine tune this to be the most cost-effective, best solution that we're able to get back. So what that means is you might test this in O1 Preview, and then you might test it in O1 Mini. And you might find that O1 Mini is giving you 95% of the quality of the results that you get with O1 Preview, but doing it at a fourth of the cost. Well, in that case, I probably am going to go use O1 Mini versus O1 Preview. So that's the idea here, is that you can adjust these prompts, you can adjust the personas, you can test all the information, you can do it with different LLMs until you find the right blend of functionality and cost that makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish. So now that you've built everything out, there are a couple of things that you probably want to be aware of. One of them is we're able to essentially configure and publish this piece of functionality, or what we call a skill, that we've built. Okay? when we do that, we're able to set some rules around it. So we're able to say, how many tokens am I allowed to use to request and respond for this particular agent skill? Tokens are how most of the different LLM publishers or models charge you for use of the LLM. So they usually charge per token, and this lets you kind of control cost around those tokens. You can actually also have usage conditions. So I can then build, specific conditions into when I'm allowed to use a token and when I'm not allowed to use a token. The next thing I'm able to do then is actually go through and publish this. So I can take this and publish it within a specific area of the platform. So I can say that this can only be used on knowledge articles that are attached to incidents, or I might say that it's platform wide, it only belongs to HR, etc. So I can really kind of tune how we're doing this. In this case, we're talking about building a skill that applies to a UI action, but we can actually apply these in a lot of different ways throughout the system. So while we were talking about here, someone kind of going to a knowledge article and then invoking this particular skill, getting a rating back, and then deciding to do something with that article, maybe publish it, maybe not publish it. Maybe I don't want to do it that way. Maybe I want to invoke it in workflow. So instead of creating a UI action, I create a workflow action. And now whenever a knowledge article is created, I can maybe do this evaluation. And if everything passed and was satisfactory, I'll just go ahead and publish it. But if anything was unsatisfactory, maybe then I give it to a particular user to review. So this ability to create your own skills based on different models, whether they're internal or third party, and then determine how you use them in the system is extremely powerful. And this is where you're really going to start seeing ROI and really going to start to see attachment of generative AI functionality for your organization.
Hey, thanks, Eros. So, that brings us to completion in terms of showing a little bit of a different use case, right? Using other technologies other than Copilot and kind of covering the three that we called out. We wanted to handle some questions here, and we've got some that I'd like to run by you, Eros. So we already talked about how long might it take to do kind of the Copilot thing and get that in place. But we've got one question that came in from Adrian. It's basically talking about in the Now Assist example with Copilot, if you've got this kind of single place to work, and depending, right, it will go out and leverage different AI technologies. The example he gave will the when referencing the other agent, do you have to call it out? For example, does Copilot, do you have to say ask Now Assist, or does the bot intuit from the answer example? For example, if the question is about how do I create a PowerPoint, does it know where to go for that versus, hey, I want to look at my vacation policy, or do you have to steer it?
It does. So, and this is what's great about generative AI is it has this ability to understand context. And what we're doing there is essentially another form of grounding. So the agent itself, the ServiceNow agent, understands that when someone's asking about creating a PowerPoint deck or putting something in Excel or whether someone has calendar availability, that's not its realm of inference. So that's not something that it knows about. So it knows that when someone asks those types of questions, it should pass that information to Copilot and let Copilot respond. And vice versa. When we're in Copilot, if you're asking about something like ordering a laptop, Copilot understands that that's something that Now Assist knows how to do, and it should pass that query on to Now Assist. So I don't have to specifically tell it, hey, Copilot ask Now Assist a question, or hey, Now Assist ask Copilot a question. It just happens organically. And that's some of the configuration that we do is fine-tuning that process.
Perfect. Hey, Eros, another question. You may or may not know this. We might have to get our Microsoft specialist on it, but do you know if you have to have the full Copilot M365 license, or can you integrate with standard Copilot licenses?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do believe it is the full Copilot M365 license.
Okay. Another question, Eros. A lot of what we saw there, you teased us with technical stuff, right? And certainly for me, it's very technical. The Copilot integration piece, whether you use a partner like CDW for some help on that, or you do it internally with your own team, is it typically within the scope of a customer's, let's say, ServiceNow administrator and their in-house ServiceNow team to be able to do something like that Copilot piece?
Yeah, so it's really going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're looking at just setting up kind of the basic integration between Copilot and ServiceNow, I think that most of your competent internal admins are going to be able to do something like that. But when you start looking at creating net new experiences and tailoring experiences specifically to your organization, that's where the
Yep.
level of complexity can ramp up, and you might want to leverage a partner for something like that.
Okay, questions coming in fierce and furious. I love it. This question, we get it a lot, Eros. What AI functionality is included with ServiceNow without buying anything additional?
Yeah. So all of the new generative AI functionality is locked behind new licensing called a Pro Plus SKU. But you have access to kind of the older generation of AI technology, even in your base licensing. So even in your base, let's say IT service management licensing, for example, you would have access to some virtual agent experiences. Not all of them. Some of them are locked in their higher tier licenses, but at least some basic virtual agent experiences you would have access to. And there are some other things as well. But
Okay,
any of the new functionality is behind Pro Plus.
yeah, I think if you don't have virtual agent running, that may be the tier one to go for. Certainly, I think that's the one we see. Ultimately, question from Raj: Is Now Assist a ServiceNow chatbot or an AI assistant? What is Now Assist?
It is all of those things. So Now Assist is what ServiceNow brands all of its generative AI functionality, which includes its AI virtual agent, which is leveraged via the chatbot, but also does things like auto summarization, content generation, um, reporting, a number of different things. All of that falls into the Now Assist umbrella. So basically, if it
Okay.
leverages generative AI, it's Now Assist.
Yep. Another question around the licensing, just asking, what type of licenses is required to get Now Assist? I know, Eros, we've got a team here that does everything around licensing, but it is an uplift, right? So it's required, a purchase is required to bring it to the next level.
Purchase is required. It's suite based normally. So in the very same way that you can go from ITSM to ITSM Pro, you can go to ITSM Pro Plus. Okay. So
Pro
by your
Plus
suite,
is, yeah, Pro Plus is the key there, right?
correct. Yeah. So by suite, you can upgrade to the new generative AI functionality. There are some opportunities to do enterprise-wide licensing there, and then they have Now Assist Creator, which is all of the developer functionality, which has its own set of licensing.
Okay. Karen asked, when determining how many tokens to use, so using an external model, I assume we are all consuming Now Assist tokens. Are those predetermined or a custom skill?
So if we're using the internal ServiceNow LLM, we are using Now Assist tokens. If we are using any of the external LLMs, we would be using those sets of tokens and not the Now Assist tokens. So it really depends on what LLM you're leveraging is which tokens you would use.
Got it. Hey, Kim, any other questions coming in the background? I know we've been seeing them come through here.
Yes, actually, we just got one right now from Nolan. It says, can one have two info streams depending on the user engaged, such as an internal chatbot for product questions from a call center employee and an external chatbot that can answer external users' questions without revealing the internal information?
Absolutely. So that's what these skills are for, right? So I'm creating skills that have specific areas of expertise and then determining how those get leveraged. So I might build a chatbot that's for my external customer that has access to some internal skills and some custom skills that I created, and then an internal chatbot for my employees that has access to a whole set of different skills. And those two don't necessarily need to cross over. And that's really what we're seeing customers do is you might have kind of a universal bot that does everything, but you might have an HR specific bot, ITSM specific bot, customer service specific bot, and so on and so forth.
Thanks, Eros. And Kim, I see one more. Now Assist, this comes from Armando. Basically, can Now Assist provide knowledge articles published by third-party vendors like Microsoft, Adobe, et cetera?
So I'm assuming that you want to take a knowledge article that's published on something like SharePoint and have that surface through Now Assist. So the answer to that would be yes. We do have the ability to do that. There's multiple ways to get to that outcome, and they all do require some configuration, but ultimately you can get there.
Excellent. What I'd love to do is, as I see the questions kind of fall off, so here we go. Guys, want to share this with you. Some of you may have seen it before, but one of the things we're doing here at CDW for our customers is talking about an AI value journey powered by ServiceNow. Now, our clients have overarching AI initiatives going on in their organizations. What we're talking about is getting ready and finding that low-hanging fruit. Somebody had asked a question, what's the low-hanging fruit for AI here in ServiceNow? And I only skipped it because we answered the question, part of that question, and then covered it as well. It might be the chatbot, right? If you don't own anything else, but you aren't using an automated chatbot, that's the low-hanging fruit. Anyway, one of the things that we can do to help our customers and what we are doing, and Eros actually leads this stuff. So if any of you want to speak with Eros one-on-one or have him talk to your team one-on-one, you're a CDW customer, he's available to you. But one of the things we may talk about at some point is this AI readiness journey. And there's different steps that we go through. One of them is, what AI capabilities do you have currently in your current technology, ServiceNow or otherwise, that you're not leveraging, and what are those pieces of it, right? What are prerequisites that are going to get you ready for generative AI? So we have to talk about the core AI capabilities, but we'll talk about, in a kind of a stepped fashion, what's available, what's being leveraged, and what should your personal roadmap look like? But ultimately, where we're headed is a lot of the things that you saw today and much more, right? So we just touched on integrating with other AI tools, but the generative AI power of ServiceNow is staggering. In order to turn on some of that stuff, planning has to start now for some pieces that you might not be able to use for 6 or 8 months because of other things that need to get in place. So what we're finding with our customers is, get a plan together, grab the low-hanging fruit, but keep an eye on, what will be rolling out next and the work that has to get done today so that you'll have that ability to turn it on then. Eros and his team has put together a program around this. But if you just want to kind of have a lunch and learn, pick Eros's brain, get any members of his team together to continue today's dialogue. That's what we're here for. Eros, I'm going to turn it back to you with any final words to kind of sign us off here. But please, folks, as you leave, you're going to get a pop-up on your screen. Let us know how we did today. Just ask a couple questions real quick, or even type in one section a topic you'd like us to see cover in one of these next monthly sessions. And thanks for coming. Eros, I'll give you a final word.
Thank you, John. So I just want to say, I see that we have more questions that are coming through. Again, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk to you and your organization about some of the things that you can do here with AI. I think it's really important to understand that you shouldn't be thinking of AI as a kind of standalone thing that you're going to roll out and get value out of it. You really need to start thinking about AI as a built-in capability that's going to enhance the abilities of everything else within the platform. And when you start doing that, that's when you're going to see the pathway to unlock value. There's just so much that we can do here. And I'm so excited to be able to roll out some of these functionalities and build new outcomes for our customers around generative AI. It's just going to be a great year for ServiceNow and AI.
And Eros, you're right. I noticed those questions. Here's what I'm going to do. I will get with Eros offline. I'll get answers to those questions that are sitting there in chat, and I will personally send an email to you guys who asked those questions. Again, when that survey comes up, it's also going to ask you, do you want a copy of this PowerPoint? Check yes, you'll get a copy automatically. Thanks so much for the CDW family, customers that came and participate in this. This session is partially from feedback we got from you towards the end of last year of what you wanted to see covered. So please keep giving us feedback. We love doing the sessions. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day.